Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Anila Ali. I'm with AMMWEC, and today AMMWEC speaks to an amazing woman. She's not only my friend, she is a scholar, and recently I heard her presentation on women, life, freedom, and a civilizational reckoning. And I was just so inspired to share her insight with you all. But before we begin, I want Dr. Abadian to share something about herself. Tell us who she is.
First of all, thanks so much for inviting me to be here tonight. I really appreciate it. It's so exciting to have this platform to talk about something I love so much. My name is Sousan, and I was born in Tehran, Iran, and lived there for half my childhood, and then also half my time in the United States. My father was a development economist, and he got hired to work in the World Bank. So I grew up part of my time in Washington, D.C. area as well. And we went back and forth quite a bit before the revolution.
Mm-hmm. So you were born in Iran, you grew up there, and then because of your father's job with the World Bank, you were here in DC. That's how you came here.
That's how I came here. And then we stayed because of the revolution, because we're from a minority community in Iran. And so it didn't feel like it would be particularly safe for us to go back, to tell you the truth. But we did go back after the revolution. So I've been there a number of times after the revolution. And last time I was there was in 2014. So I've seen Iran post-revolution as well.
Dr. Abadian, if I may call you Sousan.
Please, call me Sousan, of course.
Yes. You know, we want this space to be a place where we explore stories of courage. We talk about culture. We talk about civilization. I come from Pakistan. I came here for some of the same reasons that you did. Not that I was a minority in Pakistan, but I was very friendly and cognizant of the fact that my grandparents had created Pakistan, a place that would be safe for all minorities, and that is not what was happening later on. And so for me, it was also like culture, civilization. It's very dear to me. And today we are turning our focus to Iranian women and to the women life freedom movement that has actually reverberated across the world. But yet I want more of us women to stand together with the Iranian women. And I thought like they must have so much backbone that they are, and that is what underpins their courage to do what they're doing today. And whatever's happening, the political uprising, it's, I think, in a way, a civilizational reconciliation. They are perhaps rediscovering their own ancient values, their dignity, and whatever they're doing, they're making history. And I pray for them. I pray for their lives. But today, and for the people of Iran, and all the minorities that are there. But I think that it's important for you to tell us some of the insights that you were sharing on the presentation so that we can understand where this movement is coming from.
First of all, thank you so much for caring for your relatives, because we are relatives.
Yeah.
In Iran. We are very connected as people and as civilizations, if you want to call it that. And our cultures have been intertwined for millennia. So we are very close relatives. So thank you for caring for my relatives in Iran. And I'm so grateful for that. And the Iranian women and men are incredibly courageous. I mean, it's easy for me to be sitting here talking about them, but what they're doing, confronting what they're confronting is just unbelievable. Part of what I try to convey in my talk, and hopefully I'm going to do some decent job of explaining all the various elements, but the hypothesis, the idea I was trying to convey is that oftentimes people look at this, whatever's happening in Iran, and saying, oh, it's because of Western influence. that the woman life freedom, these are all Western notions, and this is Gen Z, or these are the young people who've been influenced by social media. And the point I was making, I think pretty convincingly, I hope, was that this is not a Western notion, that these are concepts, the value of women, the dignity of women, the value of earthly life, and freedom of conscience and choice are original to Iran. They're values that predate the conquest of Iran and have been there. They're not being remembered because they've always actually been in our poetry, in our stories, in the way we celebrate Nowruz, our celebrations. They've been there. These are all the pre-conquest holidays that we had. So they've always been there, but there's a tension between those ideals and values sometimes and the post-conquest values that were adopted afterwards. And so in a way they're recalling, but it's being amplified now in a way. And I think that, every people that have experienced, my background is training in economic development, political development, but also collective trauma, communities that have been traumatized over generations. And then what does it take to recover? And part of the trauma is trauma of colonization and the trauma to cultures that have been colonized and the damage that's been done to these cultures. And all peoples who've been traumatized yearn to heal, yearn to become whole. And they reach back to their old identities or identities to try to, integrate. And in a way, that's what Iranians are trying to do. They're trying to heal a deep collective trauma is how I see it. And part of that is hearkening back to values that were indigenous, original to Iran. And part of those values are the value, I could go into detail, for example, of the pre-conquest values, but the values that valued women, the dignity of
I want to talk about that. I do want to add just a little bit, because a lot of people have mistaken the whole movement that it's just about head cover and it's clothing. But you made a really good point. And you said it's not just about that. So please do share those values of your civilization, the culture that you had. And you talked about how many rights women had. Please share that.
It's pretty remarkable when if you listen to my presentation, you'll see there's a lot of evidence. We have documentation from Persepolis, from 2,500 years ago. Life was like. They actually found these tablets that were everyday tablets, that administrative tablets from the 5th century BC. This is again 2,500 years ago, where they show that women were managing staff and they were being paid in silver, and they had equal pay, and they managed. They have their own seals. They manage estates. They own properties. So women had a lot of rights. And then even after they had babies, they were given food for their maternity leave and extra food.
That is very important. I heard that and I said, oh my God, even today you don't get a maternity leave.
In the West, in the United States, we don't have it. It was such an incredible society at the time. And women, in the pre-conquest Iran was Zoroastrian. That's the tradition that was dominant in the Persian Empire at the time. And I'm from Zoroastrian, so I know the Zoroastrian heritage. And I know Pakistan has a beautiful Zoroastrian community.
Beautiful Zoroastrian community.
And I love and I appreciate Pakistan for housing and being a safe place for our my Zoroastrian relatives who lived there at one point in time. I have a good friend in Washington, Kersi Shraf, who is from Pakistan.
Yes, he is. And I have many friends in Pakistan, and now I have many friends all over here in DC as well. And I went to also Israel, and I met Pakistani Baha'is there.
Oh, cool. Isn't that wonderful? That's so wonderful. Yeah. So I'm very grateful. I know Pakistan has a rich heritage of also sheltering minority communities, and very grateful to that. So this notion of Iran at that time was Zoroastrian, and the Zoroastrian values really honored women. I mean, from the beginning, the prophet Zarathustra, he, initiation rites. He had initiation rites for both women and men. So it wasn't just for men. It was from thousands of years ago. Girls were initiated just like
Wow.
boys. It's hard to imagine. And when he we have evidence when he talked to, he always talked to women and men both as equals. And he has a description of when he married a couple. He didn't say, the man, you are now the guardian and have the authority over the wife, and the woman, be your man. I mean, this is, again, thousands of years ago. He treated them as co-equals, and that they needed to be, they were equals that needed to be working. We have this false notion that virtue is about the woman being silent, being humble, being modest, being, of course, modesty of all everyone should be properly, behave properly, but there was no kind of obsequious. They didn't have to be hidden, the women. Right. Both partners were equal in the sense that they were seen, their virtue is dependent on them speaking, thinking, and acting in alignment with Asha, which is truth and right. So and he talked about them both as equals. And so clearly that society, and women, again, as I said, they owned property. They had equal shares. It wasn't like the men had many more shares. And I mean, even now in Iran, people who, it's just little things they still have stayed. So for example, women keep their last names. They don't give up. Oftentimes on your passport, you have your maiden name on there. You don't have your husband's name necessarily. This is actually before the revolution. I don't actually know what it is now, but we have this tradition. And when you talk about people, you say women and men. So you always have the woman first, which is really,
I like that. Ladies first, yes. And people have forgotten that.
There's these subtle ways in which it stayed, the honoring of women. So in my view, it's not a surprise that the women are so strong in Iran and that they're standing up, because it's in the culture. It's always been there, the power of women. And the men have recognized it. It's just this, it's mostly this kind of colonization layer of, and many historians talk about the loss of freedom for women, the sovereignty of women came after colonization. I don't know if this echo is from my end or your end, by the way.
No, I stopped it, but I also wanted to tell you, when I was growing up in Pakistan, and I'd love for you to share a story from the time that you were growing up in Iran. We used to wait for this TV show that would have the Iranian singers and the dancers. Oh, wow. And it would be 1 hour when I was little, 1 hour in a week. And we'd see that and we'd say, wow, we'd be amazed by. There's a very famous Iranian female singer, and I can't remember the name. Gagush, Madame Gagush. And we would be in awe. Oh, look at these amazing women. But at the same time, we also had that, my grandmother and the women before her, both my grandmothers were the matriarchs in the family. So, and by the way, my grandmother in India learned how to read and write Farsi.
Wow.
She taught herself how to write. And Farsi was actually spoken by the elite, the elite culture of the courts in India around the Mughal era. And then thereafter, the written languages were very much, even Urdu, the language that the Indian Muslims and now Pakistanis speak. It's got so much of Farsi in it. So they used to speak that. And women were in more control and more power, more empowered at that time, which is why I revert to you and I say, tell us a story about the women are in your family.
Well, my grandmother actually was one of the women that Reza Shah was the king before the last Muhammad Pahlavi. So he was the Shah that initiated the Pahlavi era. And he took a page out of the book of Ataturk from Turkey. Ataturk basically banned veiling of women. And so Reza, I mean, I don't totally agree with that. I think people should be allowed to veil if they want or not veil if they don't want. So I think there should be more freedom. But Reza Shah, because he was trying to change Iran, also pushed the not veiling. Of course, women still veil themselves. It wasn't a force. I mean, there were still women. But my grandmother was one of the women who stood up in front of crowds who formally took off the veil as a symbolic gesture. So I come from a line of women also who valued sovereignty because, I mean, we don't in the Zoroastrian, the original teachings is that we don't, again, veiling, covering your hair out of respect, whatever, but we don't traditionally, we don't have, that's not a necessity to veil, to cover our hairs. And women didn't do that traditionally. I mean, it became tradition after the Islamic conquest because it was forced, but it was not necessarily, you didn't have to be doing that before that. Anyway, so my grandmother, I also come from a line of women who, and my grandfathers, both my grandfathers died when my grandmothers were young. So the women had to take charge. They each had 4 children. Like one grandmother had 5 children, my paternal grandmother had 4. So they had to survive. And they were minority women in a society that did not give, it was just hard to be a minority. Fortunately, during the Pahlavi era, the Zoroastrians were treated a lot better than they'd ever been treated during the other eras. So we flourished in that era, and there was a lot more opportunity then than there was before.
Now, do you mind also sharing a little bit with our viewers what's like the central belief of the Zoroastrians?
Central belief? Well,
I mean, just a little summary of what are the beliefs.
I mean, one of the really amazing things, if you think now it's pretty common, but if you think thousands of years ago, that this religion believed that we don't believe in original sin or that we are born tainted. We're born with choice. And so freedom of choice is really important, that we get to choose from right from wrong, and we're not constrained. That's why freedom is a big thing. That's why the human life freedom movement, freedom is part of our value system beforehand. But freedom comes with responsibility, obviously, responsibility to greater good, but freedom to make the choice, because you can't choose God. I mean, there's nothing about, if you're forced into a religion, what's the point of that? You've got to choose love. You got to choose conscience, So choice was a really big deal. Freedom of choice, freedom of conscience, and the respect for human beings. That's the other thing that's so amazing about Zoroastrianism, is there's an innate respect for humans, including women, men and women both, that we are co-creators with the divine. So we're not just some servant of the divine or something less than. We are meant to be co-creators with the divine, to create heaven on earth. We're not supposed to wait for heaven, when we die. We're supposed to create heaven here in the ways we think, the way we speak, the way we act with one another, and also very much a respect for the natural world. So, the elements were considered sacred: fire, water, air, earth. All these things were considered sacred. So keeping them pure was a religious act. So it was a really environmental religion, and the earth was considered really sacred. So this is in a nutshell, but this is a lot of it. So there weren't a lot of prohibitions, like you can't do this, you shouldn't do that, this is sinful, this is that. There were stuff like that accumulated over thousands of years, but originally it was a religion that really left a lot of freedom for us to choose. And the choices towards well-being of the whole, our own well-being, and life was also really valued.
Life is very important. You mentioned that in the presentation.
Yeah.
Celebrating life, living life.
Yeah, that life, human life, and life on earth was to be cherished. That's why Persians love beauty. There's a lot of beauty, art, color, sensuality. That's how we create joy. Joy, our festivities, our celebration. Originally, all of our festivities were about celebrating the natural world, celebrating the seasons, and celebrating life, because that's also how you fight evil, whatever evil is. You fight it by celebrating and by having joy. So there's a lot of, that's why woman, life, freedom they're not Western European notions. They're actually indigenous values that we are resurfacing.
Yes, that's very important to know, because also as I'm reading more and more about, theology and delving deep into, my religion as well, there's a lot of emphasis on your personal choices. you know yes, you rely on God and you hope for the best, but there's a big burden of responsibility on human beings for making the right choices. And I think that part is what I'm also trying to promote in our young generation, that we have been given this. And I love the idea of taking care of our world, the earth. I just did this short TikTok on, and I talked in Ramadan, and I said, how many times do we think about the animals and the trees and the living things, when in the Quran, God mentions, I've created all of these for human beings to enjoy, and gave human beings the superior status of being able to think. And why aren't we thinking, let's make sure that this Ramadan we do this? And when you mentioned that, I said, these are the common values that we have, that kind of bind us together, that we have the same air to breathe, right? And we have the same trees and nature and resources, earth, wind, fire, everything God has given us for us to cherish and enjoy. And hope we do more of that, and we also think about it, because that's what I love, like thinking and being that kind of a person who says, yes, I trust God, but I want to think about it. I make my decision, and no, I'm not going to let my children cross the road without holding their hands.
Well, part of the idea in Zoroastrianism is that God is not external to us. So God is internal to us. So we're not thinking just with our mental minds. We're accessing higher mind, and higher mind is also heart. So there's a lot of contemplation, and it's not like, oh, we're left to our own human devices, because it's not our personality that we're thinking from. It's our higher self that we cultivate a relationship with our own. So in our understanding, God is not external to us, separate from us. It's part of who we are. And then also God is in the creation. So that's why we're not the creation isn't just here for us to enjoy, but we're responsible for it. So we're guardians in a way. So
the guardians of it,
we're not, there's not a superior, like we don't have a superior position. That's not how we look at it. We have a responsibility position, and we also get to enjoy it because we're part of creation, and we get to enjoy the rest of creation, and we get to guard what is sacred. So that's how we see it.
Now, I wanted to ask you, do you also celebrate the Persian New Year, which is the Nowruz?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So tell me, what do you do? I know the fish.
Oh, I love it. I'll invite you over this time to enjoy it. I mean, there's a lot of things we do, and we do it. It's a several week process, actually. The first thing I do, I can't wait. I'm always waiting for like a few weeks before Nowruz, 2 weeks before, I start growing sprouts. So, you grow wheat sprouts, or you can grow lentils. And we set a table. One of the things we do is we set a table and have representations of the harvest and all the good things of life, but also the difficult things, but the good things in life, about creation. So Nowruz is about renewal, that after a long winter, spring will come, and we are grateful for that spring. So so we set a beautiful table. I mean,
I've seen some of those. I love them.
But we have a tradition before Nowruz, before the actual spring equinox, where we have little bonfires. It's Charshambe Suri, and we jump over the fires that we make with children, and we say things, that we chant basically to the fire, take from us what no longer serves us, Zad Diamanto, take away our ill health and give us your vitality, basically. And as we do that, we jump over it. We have a certain kind of dinner. Anyway, there's a whole there's lots of traditions that go with that. And then for 2 weeks, we basically visit family and friends. They come to us, we go to them. Children, new clothing. There's a lot of different things that we do around that. And then at the end of the whole thing, after a few weeks, we toss the sprouted wheats into a running water. So we go on a picnic basically, and with family and friends, and then we throw it into running water river, and we say we're giving away the old, whatever was from the old year, and bringing in the new. And anyway, it's a really, I'm not doing it any justice, but it's beautiful, long, all about friendship, love, vitality, return of vitality, and nature, respect for nature and love for nature. So that's it in a nutshell.
Well, that's beautiful, and I look forward to enjoying it next time with you. But it seems that both ancient Persia and also where I come from, Indus Valley civilization, women were not afterthoughts. They Definitely were leaders. Not. They had their own mind. They were central to social life, to expression, to culture. And today what we see the modern Iranian women doing, they are rising up, right? They are reclaiming all of these values, which I'll let you expand a little bit more and tell us, what are the Iranian women doing, and how can we as women come together to help them?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I mean, I feel humbled to speak about these women because they're so incredibly courageous. I mean, it's hard to even fathom what they're up against and what they're doing. I mean, they know they're facing death, they're facing rape in prisons, they're facing blindness. I mean, so I feel humbled talking about it. I don't feel really suitable, to tell you the truth, but I will speak to the best of my abilities. I mean, they're asking to be treated with dignity. It's very simple. It's not about, I don't want to wear a hijab. It's like they want to be treated with dignity. They want to have work. They want to be paid well. They don't want to have their bodies controlled by men and telling them they should have the cover just so, and they don't want to have everything policed. They want to have the freedom that they're entitled to, freedom of conscience, and they want to be treated with respect. That just because they show a little bit of hair doesn't mean they don't have virtue. That's ridiculous. So they're redefining what is this virtue? This is virtue to cover my hair. That's what virtue is. I mean, whose virtue is this? Who made this definition of virtue? So they're challenging all sorts of notions. It's not about just hair covering. It's about dignity and respect, and not having to disappear to be valued, not having to be to conform to be valued. So basically, to be allowed to be celebrated and their creativity expressed and who they are and their individuality to be expressed without fear, and also to contribute to society. I mean, look at these societies where the women are not treated equally. What has happened to them? Really, I mean, let's honestly look. My work before, I did a lot of research on societies that flourished and the ones that didn't flourish. And the societies that flourished most are the ones that treat their women with respect.
Absolutely, yes.
So look at our societies where they treat our sisters disrespectfully. They're all crippled. Like, let's really admit it. They are crippled societies. So if a society
dysfunctional,
their children are damaged. The children, how can men and boys flourish when their mothers are treated poorly? I mean, the boys, how can boys be treated well if their mothers are hurting? So this affects all of us. It's not, when you treat women poorly, the whole society suffers. Is the way the research bears it out. It's not just my opinion.
No, you're absolutely right. And thank you for sharing that. We're going to be elevating more voices. And as we witness these world historical movements that are happening today, we must remember that culture matters. Civilizations shape the way people see themselves. And that's the essence of or what these Iranian women are doing today. And they stand for woman, life, freedom. They aren't just protesting, they're answering a call from the history that you shared. And so it's, like you said, a call for dignity and equality, which is fundamental human right for all of us, all women.
Yes.
And for the soul of our civilizations.
Yeah. And I just want to mention one thing, my darling, is that we speak of Zan, Zindagi Azadi, woman, life, freedom, but I want to make sure that people know that, and it's often not said, but there's a male counterpart, Mard Mihan Abadi, and man, nation, and revitalization. So that's a parallel, expression. So this is not about a woman against a man movement. It's women and men together.
Yes, and it's about dignity, respect, and equality.
Exactly, because the men and Iranian men know, the young Iranian men particularly, but the Iranian men who are standing with their sisters, their mothers, their daughters, their classmates, their friends, or strangers, the men that are standing beside and behind these women, they know that the future Iran, the future generations demand dignity for women. So the men are standing behind them. And I'm calling on the men of Pakistan to stand behind their women folk, to claim their dignity, the women's dignity as well, because everyone will benefit that way.
We want all men to stand, beside the women. I also say, I'm a Muslim woman. I'm not asking to be ahead of the man. I'm asking to be given a place next to him, equal to him, like I have in the Quran. And that's how they will flourish, for they come from us.
That's right. Whether so they like to admit it or not. Yes, they will come. Yeah.
They want strong mothers. They want strong wives, and they want strong daughters. And I just want to thank you, Dr. Abadian. Thank you for joining us. And these are the kinds of conversations we will be having that will bring back history, culture, and this is where we will all meet as women.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, and blessings to everyone. And may you have easy fast, those of you who are fasting.
Thank you. Yes, it's Ramadan.
Yes.
And we're sending our blessings and prayers to all those amazing people who are standing up for what they believe in around the world.
Yes.
And especially in Iran right now.
Thank you. Thank you, Anila.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us. Subscribe to our channel. See you later, everyone.